Hello everyone, this is Nirwa here, editor of India, and today we have Amish Tripathi, one of the most popular authors from India. He has written the Shiva trilogy and the Ramchandra series, as you all know. Uh, he's now hosting a docu-series on Discovery Plus, The Legends of Ramayana, and it's, it's more like an extension of what we have already read in his books. And he has gone to the on location, shot the videos, and let us know the history behind it and what else has been there. So, without much ado, let's get started. And let me welcome Mr. Amish Tripathi ji. So let's start with, how did this idea of Legends of Ramayana come across on Discovery Plus? Is it an extension of your book on the Ramchandra series that you've written that have been hugely popular? And was the shooting, is it more like storytelling? Have you been to the places that are part of the book and your research work, or is it fictionalized shooting? What do you think? What do you have on that?
So, Nirva, honestly, often life is what happens to you while you're planning other things. So, I'd love to claim that I'm this brilliant strategic mind and I was planning all these things. It's not really true. Often things have just happened to me, which is why I always say these are the blessings of Lord Shiva. When I was working at my banking job, I never thought I was going to be a full time writer. Story just grabbed my soul, and I wrote just for myself. Actually, I didn't really think it would get published, and I resigned after my second book when my royalty check became more than the salary. I come from a middle class family. I cannot be irresponsible, uh, and so it was just blessings that happened to me, and I just followed that path. And similarly, it happened with this documentary as well. I have been a full time writer for nearly 12 years now, and as you know, also a temporary bureaucrat now. I work at the Indian High Commission in the UK and director of the Nehru Center. I am technically a diplomat. Um and this discovery thing, I wasn't really looking for this. Uh, they had the credit must go to the wide angle films people, Sujata and Abhimanyu, and the Discovery team, Megha Tata, who's the MD, Sai, who's their creative head. My team was approached by them that they have this idea for a documentary series, and I was apparently the first on their list to be the host for this. And when my team approached me, obviously this was something right up my alley. The Discovery people felt that they wanted to make something that was respectful, obviously, not the typical. I'm not criticizing anyone, but the typical Western style documentary on our traditions and our cultures. Usually, they talk down to us. They make fun of our traditions. They wanted to make a respectful take, but also a modern uh, rendition which would appeal to the youth as well. So, which is why they thought I would kind of fit into this. And I was obviously very interested in this. My team negotiated with them, and we worked out the thing. And well, here we are with the documentary. And in terms of your second question, that did we actually shoot? Yes, we actually shot at all those locations. Uh, Nirva, one of the things I quoted this as a story actually in the press conference launching this program. That all of us know our parents very well. Of course, we are born to them. We know them from the day we are born. But yet, there are times in our lives when we suddenly discover something new about our parents, and we say, "Arey, ye to malum hi nahi tha." And you become closer to them. Like I discovered how my parents met when I was 14 years old, right? And the kind of family we came from, my parents actually met on the mandap. It was an arranged marriage. I didn't know this, right? And I discovered it at age 14, and I know my parents so well, and yet in a bizarre way I actually felt closer to them. That, I thought I knew them completely. Suddenly I've discovered something new. And it's that same feeling that we feel when we discover something new about Lord Ram and Goddess Sita, because they are like the parents of our culture, right? Of us as a people. And through this documentary, we discovered so many things about them. We actually shot at all these locations: Ayodhya, Prayagraj, Chitrakoot, Panchvati, Hampi, which is ancient Kishkinda. Many don't know this. Rameshwaram. Then in Sri Lanka, Sigiriya, which is apparently Ravan's ancient capital, Novara Elia, various other places. We shot at all these locations and discovered so many new things about Lord Ram and Goddess Sita, and hopefully, many of the viewers would feel that same sense of wonder and a feel of becoming closer to Lord Ram and Goddess Sita, even though you know their story. Of course, which Indian doesn't know the story of the Ramayana? So that's what was truly special about this.
Right. Do you think there is a need in these days, day and age, of a modern way of telling these stories? The modernizing the historical stories of India. Uh,
Nirva, it's not just something that's needed in this age. This is something that's needed in every age. Um, we are the only pre-Bronze Age culture that is still alive. Every single other pre-Bronze Age culture has died out. Egypt, many don't even know the original name of Egypt. Their actual name was Chem. Egypt is a derivation of the Greek word for them, Egyptos. तो उनका नाम भी हम लोग भूल गए हैं. We know them through what someone else called them. Egypt, Mesopotamia, all these ancient cultures are all dead. They're all museum pieces. We are the only ones still around. Now, sadly, in the modern day, we don't look at ourselves enough. We don't analyze ourselves enough. So we haven't actually analyzed why is it that we are still alive when every other pre-Bronze Age culture, China is not pre-Bronze Age. Pre-Bronze Age means minimum 5,000 years old. China is probably around 2,000. It began around 2000 BC, and Emperor Qin was only 500 BC. So we are the only ones who are still around. We haven't analyzed why, right? There can be various reasons that maybe our ancestors never surrendered, unlike the ancestors of many other cultures. The same invaders who came here went there as well. They wiped them out. Out here, our ancestors kept fighting. Yes, that could be one reason. Another reason could be that we were a very decentralized culture, so there was no one head to cut off, right? Uh, all IT people watching this would know the value of a backup. We had backups everywhere. So you destroyed one kingdom, another kingdom would rise. So that was perhaps one reason. The third reason, and this is a theory that I have, that we never lost attachment to our ancient stories. Because what is culture at the end of the day? It's the values we believe in, the land that we find holy. It's the food that we eat. It's the way we interact with each other. It's the clothes that we wear, and it's the stories that we believe in. The stories that touch and move us. Many of the other cultures, they forgot their stories. Why did they forget them? And the Greeks forgot the stories of Zeus and Apollo. The Egyptians forgot the stories of Amun Ra. And once they forgot that, they were disconnected from their ancestors. We refuse to forget. Why is that? I think that we had a unique mix of rigidity and flexibility. That we are strong enough that we will keep fighting, we will not forget. But when times change, we adapt our stories a little bit so that the soul of the old is still there, but we add in something of the new so that becomes relevant to a new age. And this has been done repeatedly with our stories. Many modern Indians believe that the Lakshman Rekha is there in the Ramayana because they saw a 1980s television serial which showed the Lakshman Rekha. In the original Valmiki Ramayana, there is no Lakshman Rekha, right? Many educated Indians
hmm,
actually don't know this. Uh, the first time the Lakshman Rekha is mentioned, at least from the text that I have read, is actually in the Ramcharitmanas, which was composed in the 16th
hmm,
century by Goswami Tulsidas ji. But even there, it is not described the way most modern Indians think of the Lakshman Rekha, with Lord Lakshman taking that arrow and drawing that. That
hmm,
is actually from a 1980s television serial. What did Ramanand Sagar ji do basically? He modernized the Ramayana to the 1980s.
hmm,
What did Goswami Tulsidas ji do actually? He modernized the Ramayana to the 16th century. Uh,
hmm.
and we do this repeatedly, but we still keep the soul of the old. So I think this is something that is a unique strength of India, and we must keep doing it because that this is what keeps our stories alive. That we keep the connection of the old and then add in something of the new, so that we have the best of both worlds.
Right. So, which brings us to another question: how much of these, the Shiva trilogy and the Ramchandra series, how much of it is fact? How much of it is fiction? How much of it is myth? Uh,
Uh,
what would you say as a
around
as an author who wrote
around
them very close to your heart?
52.3% of it is fact. Around 38.1% is fiction, and the rest. I'm joking. Look, it's like this. No one knows what the truth is. Okay, I
Right,
always say the only one who knows the truth is Lord Shiva himself. Right? What we do
right,
is we communicate what our truth is. Right? As the Rigveda says,
right,
"Ekam sat vipra bhavata vadanti." Truth is one, but the wise speak it as many. And all of us communicate our truth. And I think the strength of the Indian way is that we have the liberalism to accept different truths, provided you speak it with respect, right?
right,
If you speak it with respect, all Indians have the Hari Ananta Hari Katha Ananta, that that forms of the Lord are many, and we'll find many stories of so even within India there's so many interpretations, right? In you're in Gujarat northwards, Lord Kartik is a bachelor, and he's the warrior god. So women actually don't enter Lord Kartik temples. But in South India, he is married. He has two wives, Valiji and Senaji. I studied in Tamil Nadu. I know a bit of Tamil. I learnt it out there. So, which is why I know these traditions in the South. Now, my mother, who's a very devout, and in the South, women enter Lord Kartik temples. He's married, you know. Uh, my mother, who's a very deeply devout and wise Hindu, does not enter Lord Kartik temples in the North, but enters Lord Kartik temples in the South. Now, this to me is the beauty of Hinduism: respect for multiple truths, and as long as you do
right,
it with respect, multiple truths are okay. Indians intuitively understand and accept this.
right, right. Speaking of being respectful, there are a lot of people, other authors without taking names. They call themselves mythologists and all, and you have very uh, consciously, subconsciously avoided and evaded that tag for yourself. Is that been a conscious decision to not call yourself a mythologist for that matter, or
The thing is, the Sanskrit term for it is either Purana, ya Itihas, ya Adikavya. That's what we call it.
hmm,
Purana is ancient. Itihasa is literally thus it happened.
history?
Adikavya is the first poem, the original poem, because Ramayana is the Adikavya. Um, this debate of mythology history is actually a colonial era debate, because the European colonialists, and especially German Indologists and British Raj era colonialists, wanted to put across a point of view that their religion is history and fact, and all other particularly pagan religions are myths and untrue. And in that, they appropriated a term called mythos, which is actually a Greek word. They appropriated Greek mythology as well. Plato and Aristotle and Socrates are very conveniently taken as fathers and ancients of European ways of life, and very conveniently it has been airbrushed out that they were all pagans. They were idol worshipping pagans, right? But that has been conveniently airbrushed out. Their philosophies, if you read the Republic, if you read, it's all built around their way of life, just as our way of life was, which was built around the worship of their gods and goddesses. But that's all been very conveniently airbrushed out. Mythos, the Greek word, actually means a story that hides the philosophical truth. So it doesn't mean untruth. It means a story that hides the philosophical truth. That's it. That's what it means. And history, the modern word for it, is that it is the truth, right? But let's explore
Hmm.
historical texts. According to the Europeans, the father of history obviously has to be a European, according to the Europeans. So you must have obviously read those texts of that, and in that in that text, the which was the original history book of Greece, elephants from India were described, and the years were portrayed as wings, which the elephants could use to fly. This was in a history book. Okay.
Right.
Uh, so did history have facts? I mean, this entire debate that this is the truth and this is untruth is a European era construction. It is silly of us to even get into this debate because we are fighting by their rules. Our ancients were very clear. The only thing that we can be sure of as the truth is this moment. Everything else is either a memory or a dream of the future. You cannot be sure what the truth is. What you can be sure of are facts. Okay. The truth is an
Hmm.
interpretation, a story which puts those facts together. Now, we had our Puranic Kahanya, we had genealogy of emperors right down to Mahapadmananda. That is there in our Puranas. Now, that is a list of facts. Our ancestors, however, were even more clear that how you put those facts together into philosophical lessons for you is what is more important. Okay, because that's what defines how we live our life in this moment. That is how we must approach this entire thing of myth history. It's a debate, and we are fighting in the European colonial battleground. If we get into this debate, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of time. Like, for example, the way I see it, uh, if someone asks me, is the story of the Ramayana true? I said, yes, it is. Did Lord Ram and Goddess Sita exist? Of course, I believe they exist. I believe they are our ancestors. I believe their blood flows in our veins. But am I going to waste my time arguing with someone and trying to prove it to him? No. Your choice, boss. तुम्हें नहीं मानना है मत मानो. मैं मानता हूँ. Okay, because the
Right.
more important thing for me is to learn from their story, learn philosophies which I can apply in my life. That's the way I see it. So I mean, mine, I think, is the Indian way. This debate itself is a waste of time.
Right. Speaking of civilizations, a friend of mine, Varun, he had a question for you that you have been talking about the glorious civilization that India has been, and you are a strong proponent of decolonization. In your recent podcast with Ranveer Arwale, Allahabadi, you also talked about the book of mathematics by Bhaskaracharya.
Leela.
And the Gurukul system of education, where the teacher to student ratio was 1:5. Uh, do you think if you were at the helm of affairs in this, would you bring in these things back to modern day education, so that the coming generation can be more courageous and brave and confident and rational? What do you think of that?
Nirva, I would see this at three levels. One is
Hmm.
the structure itself, okay, the Gurukul Pathshala Madrasa structure, which is what has been spoken of in Dharampal ji's beautiful tree. I would encourage all of you to read that book. Dharampal ji, I'm sure you've heard of that book, Nirva. This is a book based on British Raj era records, because there are some Indians who will not believe things unless a white man has recorded it. So this is British Raj era records of what our education system was before the British took over and destroyed it. So it's not that we had no education system, and the British created our education system. That is utter nonsense. In fact, we had a far more widespread education system. Uh, but should we have the same structure as we had earlier? Look, we were limited by the technology of that time. Today we have much more modern structures, online structures, bigger universities. So as far as the first part, which is structures, is concerned, of course we should use modern tech. But the second part is decolonizing our education system. This I'm a strong proponent of, and this is something which I have written on repeatedly. I've spoken to senior ministers very often. This is something that we really have to do. And it's not just about teaching the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. I'd written an article recently in the Times of India of why the Gita should be taught in schools. But it's not just about teaching the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. It is across all subjects. In maths, we teach nothing of our geniuses. In science, we teach nothing of ours. There's a beautiful history of Indian science exhibition that had been done by the Science Museum in London some 6 years ago, but they couldn't find supporters to carry it to India. It shows the state of Indian affairs, and this exhibition was put together by Goras who were interested in Indian sciences, right? Something I think I'd said in Ranveer's podcast as well, that even something as simple as the number of seasons in India, what is taught in our schools is actually European seasons, because we are taught that there are four seasons: autumn, winter, spring, summer, and very few of us ask the obvious question, "Ma'am, monsoon kahan gaya?" Right? And actually, India has six seasons. Right?
6 seasons.
So even something as basic as this, is completely dyed in European colors, and there is a real life impact of this. I've spoken of this. The kind of buildings that we build, our architecture, is completely horrible and completely unsuitable for Indian climates. I can see. I'm assuming this is your house. It has a nice tall ceiling, which is how Indian houses should be built. There should be enough natural open lighting. There should be balconies. There should be, ideally, our houses should have a courtyard in the middle so that aids air circulation. But our architects are desperate. You can't blame them क्योंकि एजुकेशन सिस्टम ने हम सबको बस अंग्रेज बना दिया पढ़ा लिखा के. So they want to copy Western European glass wall buildings, okay, which makes sense in Western Europe where there's a shortage of sun. It makes no sense in India. We are building giant microwave ovens because
Yeah.
in India the problem is not a shortage of sun. The problem is too much sun, right? It makes no
True,
sense to
true.
build a glass wall buildings, and because of that, we have to blast AC inside. Energy costs, people falling ill inside. It makes there's our another thing. Our entire way of life is built around managing the monsoon. Our ancestors were clear about that. Our entire way of life. The word for year is Varsh. The word for nation is Varsham. Again, all of this is from a
Hmm.
Sanskrit word for rain, Varsha. Okay. Our ancestors were very clear. The entire Indian way of life is around the monsoon. It's a bit like you get all your annual salary within 2 months, 2.5 months, and how you
Hmm.
is about how you manage the savings of those 2.5 months. Make sure you save enough in that 2.5 months and spread it out over the nine and a half, 10 dry months. That's what our entire way of life was about. Look at how our cities are built. And we don't manage the water in our monsoon season at all. Our civic structures, nothing. Okay, we flood the cities. Chennai will have floods, and then we'll have a shortage of water. It makes no sense. And our ancestors were
Yeah.
clear. It was all about managing the water. That's our way of life. Now, our elite is so Europeanized, okay, that they think mentally they're
Hmm.
living in Europe. So they want to build cities like European cities, not actually cities which are connected to Indian climate. That's the point I try to make. There is a real world, hugely negative impact of a colonial education system. And the third thing is there are many modern subjects which we must teach. I am not anti-West. Okay. So we can't say that boss अपने को अपना गुरुकुल सिस्टम चाहिए तो हम लोग ड्रोन टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं सिखाएंगे. I'm not a reactionary. That's nonsense.
Hmm.
So these are the three things that I'm not saying go back to those old structures, use modern structures. But second, in our subjects, please decolonize, connect to India. ओके. पहले बच्चे को
Hmm.
इंडियन बनाओ. ओके, फिर विदेशी सिखाना है. बच्चे को अंग्रेज मत बनाओ. एंड सेकंड एंड थर्ड, टीच मॉडर्न सब्जेक्ट्स एज वेल. आई एम सॉरी, थोड़ा लंबा आंसर है, बट आई एम वेरी पैशनेट अबाउट दिस सब्जेक्ट.
No, no, that's great. Another thing I wanted to know was that a lot of your books, rather, they talk about the characters, the lead characters, the gods. They are superhuman. They read like Marvel super comics. You know, those heroes where they have subhuman. Their powers are extremely powerful. So. Uh, what do you think about the heroes in your books? Are they gods? Are they humans with extraordinary powers? Or are they superheroes?
There are various ways in which India has approached divinity. I'm talking about the dharmic
Hmm.
religions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. But in this, I would also include Indian Islam and Indian Christianity. Even they are, as the Pew survey would have shown, they are fundamentally different from how Islam and Christianity is practiced in many other parts of the world. In our way, there are four approaches to the divine. One is the Nirgun Nirakar, the formless God, which is common across all. The second is an Akar form of God, where God has taken a form to come closer to us. The third is the Avatar concept of God, where God actually takes birth, on earth, lives his or her karma, and then goes back up. Lord Shiva's things are they come as Ansh. Lord Vishnu's come as Avatar. So Hanumanji is an Ansh of Lord Shiva. Jalandhar was an Ansh of Lord Shiva. But the fourth concept, which I find most inspiring, is that there is divinity in all of us. And the difference between the gods and goddesses and us is that they have realized the divinity within. We are yet to realize the divinity within. And I find this concept very inspiring, right? Because it means that we are not looking to someone up in the skies, you know. We are actually looking within. He's already within us. Lord Shiva is within us, R. Mahadev. And we have to find that divine within and bring that expression out. So actually, it is not a kind of a source for ego. It should be a source for humility and self improvement. You have to be worthy of this divinity
Right,
within me, right? I find
right,
this most inspiring, and so that's what reflects in my books. So the gods and goddesses that you see in my books are those who have discovered the divine within, and we have to see
right,
them as role models and try and learn from them and become that. Now, I'm not saying
right,
this is the right approach. Like I said, ekam sat vipra bhavata vadanti. Everyone has a right to their approach. This is the approach I find most inspiring, and
right,
this comes down from our traditions as well. Namaste actually means I bow to the divine within you.
right, 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 right. Your next book is the
Or of Lanka.
the War of Lanka. When do we expect that? A, B. It's. I'm going to assume that it's going to revolve around Ravan. What do you think? If people love him, people hate him, people uh, worship him. What do you think? Is he a hero? Is he a villain? What do you think?
Firstly, yes, War of Lanka, the text is ready, and I know it has got delayed. So through you, I'd like to apologize to all my readers. But the further delay is not my fault. The text is ready, manuscript is ready now. There's some editing to be done. But what happened is that I was published by Westland. Westland, as I'm sure aware, has sadly shut down.
Hmm.
Amazon used to own them. They have decided to shut down the company. It was a very sudden decision, and my team is in the process of negotiating with other publishers. We should close the deal soon. So as soon as that's done, editing will be completed and the book will come out. So the book is going to come out. I know it's a bit of a delay, but in my defense, now it's not my fault. The publisher shut down. Now, as far as the book is concerned, look, in Ramchandra series, I have used this storytelling technique called the multilinear narrative, which is you would have seen this in that Japanese movie Rashomon. It's based on this thing that essentially a story progresses on the shoulders of the characters. So if you actually explain the characters well, you understand the story much deeper. And the three main characters in the Ramayana are Lord Ram, Goddess Sita, and Ravan. So the first book, Ram, Sign of Ikshvaku, was from the birth of Lord Ram to the kidnapping of Goddess Sita. Then the second book, Sita, Warrior of Mithila, from her birth to her kidnapping. And the third, Ravan, Enemy of Aryavarta, from his birth to the time he kidnaps Goddess Sita. So all three books, multilinear narrative, ends at the same point. War of Lanka is a common narrative. So from the kidnapping of Goddess Sita till the death of Ravan, where and the divine couple returning to Ayodhya. So essentially, where Ramcharitmanas ends, where many Indians would think where the Ramayana essentially ends. So this is the fourth book, and like I said, hopefully it'll come out soon. As far as Ravan is concerned, I think what makes Ravan fascinating is that he's not just a thug. And of course, he had a massive ego. He had huge anger management issues, and he committed crimes that cannot be denied. But he was also exceptionally intelligent. He was a scholar of the Vedas. He was a very proud devotee of Lord Shiva, just like Lord Ram was. Lord Ram was also a devotee of Lord Shiva. Ravan was also a devotee of Lord Shiva. But the difference between Ravan and Lord Ram is Lord Ram, the more he suffered, the more noble and humble he became. Ravan, the more he suffered, the more angry and egotistical he became. So I think perhaps the thing to learn from Ravan is life is not about what happens to you. It is actually about how you react to what happens to you. And if we react like Ravan, we'll usually make bad things worse.
Right, right. Okay. Shiva, Ramchandra. Next, what can we expect? Lord Krishna.
Yeah, so I have a story idea in mind on the Mahabharata as well. But what is really inspiring me right now, once the Ramchan series is done, is a story I have which is set in the modern day in London actually, which has time travel
Okay.
and gaming. So completely out of
Okay,
out of my
that should
comfort
be
zone,
fun.
a different idea, but that should be fun. Indian family here, completely different series. So I'm gonna probably take that up. Let's see. Let me finish the Ramchandra series,
Great.
and then of course
And
there are various OTT things and movies, all that also happening.
fantastic. And to conclude, any tips for writers, aspiring writers uh, who may want to, take up writing as who love writing and they would want to get a book published themselves or write a story and tell a story to a lot of people. What do you think? Do you have any tips for them?
I think the most important thing I would say is, and I'm going to be brutally honest here, the way with writing, acting, sports, all these fields, these are high risk, high return games. Unlike in IT, engineering, journalism, various other fields where everyone will get a decent salary, you will get promotions after a few years. These fields, creative fields, 99% don't even make enough money to pay their bills at the end of the month. 1% make more money, or even 0.5% make more money than they ever thought possible. But even those who are successful, it usually happens for a short time. You never know when the blessing will end. So the thing I always say is, don't do this because you want to make money. अगर पैसा आया या
Right.
पैसा आया, यश मिला, तो ठीक है, वो आप आशीर्वाद समझ लीजिए, क्योंकि कल जा भी सकता है. But don't do it for that reason. Do it because there's a voice to your soul and you want to say something. लोगों को पसंद आए ना आए वो उनके ऊपर है, वो शिव जी के ऊपर है, उनके ऊपर छोड़ दीजिए, या तो शिव जी के ऊपर छोड़ दीजिए, जनता के ऊपर छोड़ दीजिए. You focus on what you want to write and have a job on the side. No dishonor in that. But keep your writing pure and write for yourself. That's what I would suggest.
Right, right. Okay, that has been a fantastic conversation, and I'm so glad you took time out for this. And good luck with all your adventures, and looking forward to all the upcoming books from you.
Thanks,
So,
Nirva.
thank you so much for your time, Amish ji.
Thank you.
All right,
Take
bye
care.
bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.